Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me. I'm just going to try and share some slides. I just have a couple of slides, but help me not ramble on for too long, which I'm sure will be very much appreciated. Once they pop up, could someone give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. If you do have any questions throughout, I think the best place is probably either the chat or there's a Q&A function. More than happy to answer questions, challenges, puzzles, riddles, anything like that. Very willingly accepted. Can't promise I'll have any useful answers for you. But what I wanted to do this afternoon was to introduce the Widening Participation team, the work we do, and how that might affect your students, probably in two different ways. Some of your students will have been on a Widening Participation programme before they got to LSE. It might have been with LSE, it might have been with one of our partners, it might have actually been with another university who are doing similar things. So they may have some of that experience, they may talk about that when you meet with them. But also, increasingly, we're looking at what we do for widening participation students, for want of a better phrase, how we support those students once they're here and how we collaborate with different teams. So I'll run through that, but there will be those two aspects, some of the things that happen before students are here, and then hopefully we'll pick up on what is out there for students once they join us at LSE. So to briefly give you some context, we've got my lovely colleagues on screen here, and we are expecting a few more to join us over the next couple of months. We have quite a few vacancies where people have moved up and on, as well as a couple of new roles as well. Our team is made up of sort of a range of programme delivery colleagues and specialists in evaluation, operations, student staff. And we have some sort of exciting new roles along the way. There's a couple in programme delivery, but we also have a care experience student support manager coming in. So looking at what support we offer to students who've been in local authority care, estranged students, sort of other similar situations that often present as big barriers to education, how we support them before university, making applications, but also in that really important transition. Lining that support up with, well, handing over to academic mentors, handing over to departmental senior student advisors, and other similar roles. So there's really that kind of golden thread of support right the way through their time here at LSE, which is really important. There's also kind of the slightly stripy colleague over on the left-hand side of the screen. It's kind of a role that we're really excited about. We'll sit in LSE Life, but we'll have a dotted line to us, and I'll talk about that programme later on. But that's looking at what we do to support contextual offer holders once they join LSE. And that's actually probably quite relevant to academic mentors, because I have had 4 or 5 emails over the last few weeks asking about what we're doing for current students. At the moment, I have a very disappointing answer, not much. From next year, I'll have something to reply to you guys with, which is really exciting. So the Widening Participation team are part of ARD, the Academic Registrars Division, and we sit within the Recruitment and Admissions Group. So we work really closely with our colleagues in student recruitment, study abroad, student marketing, undergraduate admissions, and the Financial Support Office. So the aim is that we're all working together for this cohesive journey for our students before they get here, while they're applying, and as they join LSE. So it shouldn't feel as if they're being passed from pillar to post. We've got this comprehensive support network around them from those teams. So what do we actually do? We primarily develop, deliver, and evaluate pre-entry outreach and widening participation programs. So these are free programs, and they're mainly with year 12 and 13 students, so at sixth form or college, but we're also doing some work with early secondary school pupils. So we look after the kind of access part of the Access and Participation Plan, which is LSE's strategic vision and action plan that we agree with the Office for Students every 4 years. And that sets out what we will do as LSE to broaden access for underrepresented groups, but also to ensure equality of opportunity once they're here, so that we kind of enable equitable outcomes, whether that's grade awarding, whether that's continuation from first to second year, completing degrees, or looking at their graduate outcomes, going on to further study, postgrad study, or into graduate careers as well. So everything we do, all the programs on offer are free, and generally individual students apply to take part, because LSE is quite selective in our entry requirements, and also social sciences aren't for everyone, so that we have some quite niche programs on offer. So generally it's students self-selecting to take part in the things we do, but we do work with some school groups as well. So our main three priorities at the moment, when we're looking at improving access and support at LSE, are the three listed on screen. So looking at students who come from areas where very few people go to university, so probably they don't have those family and community connections and experience to draw upon. They don't necessarily have that network of support to go and ask about things that they come across while they're at LSE. You might call it kind of this hidden curriculum, the unwritten curriculum. What is a seminar? I can't just go home and ask a family member about that. So they don't necessarily have that resource on offer because very few people in their family community have been to university before. Second group are students who come from low income households. So you might hear nationally, we talk about students eligible for free school meals at school. And unfortunately, those gaps for those students are really widening right the way across their GCSE results, their A-level results, but also their access to university as well. Things are really challenging. We're not doing too badly on here, and we've actually set ourselves a really ambitious target to up the number of students from low-income households. We have a really comprehensive financial support offer through the LSE bursary, which has been revamped this year. So I think we're in a good place for that. But there are obviously lots of challenges along the way, and things are getting even more dicey for a lot of families out there and a lot of students when they're looking at kind of the costs of university and making that balance. And finally, like I mentioned before, care experienced students are a big priority for us. So those who've been in local authority care or other caring arrangements. We're seeing huge increases in the number of care experienced students coming to LSE, which is brilliant. We now need to make sure we kind of complete our end of the deal and support them all the way through. They, to make big generalizations, often care experienced students are interacting with lots of other agencies in their life. Generally, they haven't had great experiences, whether that's disrupted schooling, interactions with local authority care, lots of disruption in there as they've grown up. And they come in with obviously very individual specific needs, but also so much great potential resilience. And they've overcome amazing things in their life. So it's our job to kind of support them to really make the most of that potential. But yeah, there are three groups that we're focusing on, and that's what we hope to achieve over the course of the next access and participation plan. The full plan is available online if you've got a spare 2 weeks to read it. It runs to about 70 pages. We do have a 3-page highlight report. I might post that in the chat later on, just in case you're interested in reading more about that. So I've talked about this idea of widening participation programs, called them WP programs, but what does that actually mean? What actually happens? So hopefully I've got some whizzy graphics here that just show you the journey that some of your students may have been on as they enter LSE. So what we might do on these programs, things like webinars and insight sessions. So we have lots of colleagues from both professional service divisions as well as academic departments who run taster lectures, information sessions, interactive workshops and things like that online. Students might also, in the course of those sort of 12 to 18 months, attend some academic seminars. So on one of our programs, we work with a charity called the Brilliant Club and PhD students from LSE who are paid to act as tutors. So they run, I think, 4 or 5 webinars, online sessions as seminars about their own research, and they develop sort of resource packs with sixth form students who then go away and write a university style assignment on that PhD tutor's topic. And they're so amazingly diverse and sort of really niche topics that these students dive into and really get that flavour of what it means to be part of an academic community like LSE. And it gets absolutely brilliant feedback. And we're really pleased that the PhD students have been taking part in this. So we might also do lots of question and answer sessions and interaction with our student ambassadors. So these are current LSE undergraduate students who are paid to be a student ambassador. And they are the most brilliant role models and really sort of act as examples for our students. What's really nice is that we're seeing increasing number of students who have been on a widening participation programme come to LSE, and then they're acting as a paid student ambassador for kind of the next generation. And that's really the most valuable experience there is. We also see it has big confidence boosting elements and sort of skills boosting elements for our students as well, which is really, really pleasing to see. We also do lots of...
5 more minutes and yeah.
Absolutely. I think I have 2 slides, so we're all good for that. So we do a lot of kind of campus familiarization as well. So we'll pay for students to come from all over the UK to visit campus to get a sense of what life in London will be like. We work with quite a few students who come from areas that are very different from London, whether that's considering our communities, the way it looks like, the way it feels. And it's really valuable for them just to experience what life in London is like and to sort of think about, is life in London as a student for me or not? And if it's not, that's okay as well. So we're also helping them think about revision, study skills, and their UCAS applications, their application to university. Our undergraduate admissions team do lots of personal statement one-to-ones, helping them prepare a competitive application, particularly for someone like LSE, where it really is competitive. And then where do they end up? Some of them will apply to LSE, and that's brilliant. Some of them will go elsewhere, and that's just as good. We really want students to be making informed decisions, whether that's to come here or not. We don't just want to give the glossy prospectus, people sat on the grass image of what life at LSE is like. We want it to be realistic. We want people to interrogate what life would be like here and make an informed choice. So this is a journey over 12 to 18 months that some of the students that you'll be working with may have been on, whether that's here or similar programs elsewhere as well. So finally, that's kind of what we do pre-entry. I wanted to end on what we do for current students. So we're aiming, obviously, to give these students who come into LSE a good grounding and ready to sort of take every opportunity that's given to them. But we realise that not every student gets that opportunity before they join us. I mentioned earlier that we have current students who act as student ambassadors, mentors and tutors. They're all paid roles. We generally recruit for these at the beginning of the academic year. And these are brilliant opportunities for flexible working, but we do pay the London living wage, and it is really great to fit around students' academic commitments as well. So the last thing that I wanted to mention is that we kind of really recognise that some of the students who join LSE aren't having the best experience that we would want them to have. And there's some emerging gaps in some of the student experience survey data, in some of the grade awarding data, but also, most importantly, backed up by things like changemaker reports, so the student research reports. So we get emails from academic mentors all the time as well. So we're working on a programme of support for contextual offer holders, really to build a network for students to meet others from similar backgrounds, to sort of complement the support that's given through student services, through academic mentors, through other sources, so that these students can kind of come together and really share those experiences and go out and take on every opportunity that LSE has to offer. We're working with the Students' Union, with Careers and LSE Life to pull this together. We've got a student co-research project going on right now, so that students are designing this programme and really hoping to support students from the moment they get their offer to study at LSE, all throughout their time, and then into that graduate job after university as well. Really focusing on those transition elements, those areas, that space and time where they're changing from one thing to the next, where something new is coming up that they might not have faced before. What can we do to give them the skills, the knowledge, the capacity to take that challenge on and hopefully be successful and make the most of their time here at LSE. There will absolutely be more information on that will come out very soon. We also need to give this thing a name, because Pilot Tailored Support Programme for Contextual Offer Holders does not roll off the tongue. So you will hear about it. It will have a name, it will have shiny branding, and you'll have lots of information about what that means for your students. But just a heads up, this is coming your way, and we've definitely heard from students and academic mentors that there's more we can do. So hopefully that's what we can bring next year. That brings me to the end, hopefully just on time. I would always welcome follow-up conversations or any questions you might have. I've put my email address here, but if you search LSE Widening Participation, there's also lots of ways to contact the team online. So thank you very much, everyone. I will stop there, and I will stop sharing as well if I can work out how to do that.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, just on time. So it was very, very on time. Yeah, I will open the floor to questions and Mega.
I'm not sure if people can unmute. I'm not sure if the webinar setup lets that happen. The wonders of technology sometimes.
Yeah,
Hi.
to do
Thank
that for
you.
everyone.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks, Sam. That was super interesting. I mean, I actually have a few questions, so I'll try and condense. But it was really good because I think we've done quite a lot of work looking at our WP student experience within law, and I think one of the areas where we've seen sort of the biggest gap is obviously once they are here, the support that's actually in place for them. So it's really good to know that there's something on the cards and something more. But I suppose just a few things linked to that. Number one, I've never been 100% sure. Are students aware at any stage upon their application that they are being termed as a WP student, or they're given a marker? Because I sometimes think, particularly with our students who are on 1 or 2 markers, that they might more so be incidental based on like the polar data, and then that I don't know whether that student is necessarily aware. So yeah, that's the first thing I just wanted to ask.
We never tell them.
Okay.
Other universities may be a bit more explicit, but most students are very much aware. So with things like contextual offers, where we give students an offer 1 or 2 grades lower, as a side note, 60% of them go on to achieve our standard offer. So they're very, very, very academically qualified, but it acts as a bit of a safety net and reassurance. We never tell students, but they are 100% aware. Every student we've surveyed says they know they got a contextual offer. And if you talk to students before they come to university, they're shopping around for where they might meet different criteria for contextual offers. What I think we need to do, it's almost a little bit like the elephant in the room, that students are sometimes aware and sometimes feel this, but aren't able to, and departments aren't able to communicate with a group who they see a need emerging for. So what I hope this new program that will eventually have a name will enable us to do is that we can ask students, we can invite them to join this network or whatever we call it. They have an opt-in or opt-out opportunity at that point. But we can also ask students and say, hey, are you happy for us to share that you're part of this network with your department? And then give departments the ability and some guidelines to say, look, these students are part of this network. They have opted in to be contacted. Here's what we'd recommend. You might want to do these things that other departments have done, for example, but here's the way to talk about it. Because there is a line that you can't go down the route of kind of problematizing these group of students or being quite kind of generalized. It needs to be dealt with really carefully. But I think that open communication would be really valuable from both sides. And what we hear from students is that they would value a bit more of that as well. So in future, there'll be some kind of communication to students that will notify, and then also we'll be able to share that with departments, which will let departments sort of do more of that proactive work as well in the careful way. Does that kind of answer the question, what you were getting at with that one?
Yeah. And I mean, I guess just linked to that, you're talking about contextual offer holders. Looking at our data this year, I don't think that all of our WP students are all contextual offer holders necessarily. So is your work just going to be targeting contextual offer holders, or actually all those with a WP flag?
The two things will kind of line up a bit from this entry cycle. So we changed what flags go into being a contextual offer holder. So there'll be a bit more overlap. We will start with contextual offer holders. So that's about 200 students a year, 20% of UK undergraduates who join as a starting point. There are other groups who might fall into different categories, and I think we'll keep an eye on that. There are also, I think you mentioned in the first question, those students who kind of incidentally fall into a marker, and they wouldn't identify their past experiences as being in that remit. And I think that's a question that we do need to answer and think about. But my intention is that whatever we do is opt-in. So if a student says, that's great, but it's not relevant for me, fine. That's okay. You could join 2 years later if you want to, but no one's kind of labeled and like, I've got this thing hanging over me that follows me around, but I don't feel that's not me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Helena popped a question in the chat. So it says, since strange students are in the WP cohort, is there an LSE contact who can sign documentation for strange students?
I'm not sure about the very technical answer to that, but we are increasing our support for estranged students. I know that in particular, care experienced and estranged students do sometimes face barriers when it comes to things like guarantors for accommodation. And I know that the residences team do a lot on that. So the LSE can act as a guarantor for accommodation, for example. The student finance, I will follow that one up. The financial support office team will absolutely know the answer to that and can deal with any individual student queries on that. But yeah, there are some of these things where they just fall between gaps and no one's quite thought about the process of what happens if a student doesn't have that support.
Just to this, it's helpful to know that estranged students are in the WP cohort, and you know, the government seems to think a university has one of these, and I don't think there is anyone specifically designated. In the end, the student was referred to our student finance office. So this is the kind of thing that's kind of helpful for departments to know as well.
Yeah, and I think we're picking up estranged students through the work that we're doing in care experienced students, and they're in the new bursary that we have on offer. We have in the past not had any reliable data. That's starting to come through, so we can kind of more proactively understand how many estranged students we have at LSE, and it's actually quite a few, more than I would have guessed. So I think that's something, we have a new role coming in who will be able to sort of look at these issues and just run through our processes and work out where there might be pitfalls and where we can jump in. I'll take that one away and have a chat to some different teams and see what we can do, because there could be some gaps there.
Could we have Natalie and then Megan? Yeah, okay.
Hello, I can't actually hear you. I've been reading the transcript while you've been talking. So can you hear me? Okay. It's largely picked up what you said, though. I don't know about the strange students that it's been referencing. So my question was more around the kind of support and activity that we can do with the rest of the cohort, I guess. So we have students coming in who could be excluded from things financially, but also where there's gaps within the kind of classroom culture and stuff, where they're making references that aren't understood or they're feeling left out because they're not. So it's more of a question, I guess, of like, how do we think more broadly about having everyone on the same page rather than just assuming that these students are always going to have to be compensating, and other things that we can think about doing that will help the whole cohort understand that these differences exist, but are not necessarily a kind of, you know, some of the feedback we hear is awful, frankly, from what some students have said or what they feel comfortable saying about free school meals. It's that wider picture of like the rest of the cohort as well as this particular cohort, who we obviously recognise that we want to support, but there's still that kind of stuff in the classroom which is unspoken or harder to deal with, or, you know, those kinds of things to think about as well.
So this is where I think between the WP team and people working directly with students, and the work that the inclusive education team, Daniela and colleagues, do around that bigger, I guess, cultural change and the change in our classroom dynamics and practices, and the training and support available for staff, I think that's where those two meet in the middle. It doesn't quite answer the question. There's a gap there for me around how do we tell other students about this? Because I would like that any student that comes into LSE will recognise the differences in their classroom and engage with that and be aware, be mindful, but also kind of incorporate that into their academic experience and recognize that that person over there might not have the same background as me, but has something really useful to contribute. I know that Larry, the new president, has actually has talked about this, maybe just talks about it when WP are in the audience, but there is something there. I don't know who it falls in, but I would definitely take that away and bring that up. So I think it's great. I think it's great that we're going to do something for this cohort. I think that's brilliant. That's something we need to do, because at the moment they're just having a terrible time, and I can't abide just sitting here and saying they can have a few more years having a terrible time while we will catch up. But there is that other piece and the other students and that wider conversation. We don't have an answer to that, but it's a very, very good point. But I think, and I hope, that while we're doing this work over here, it becomes visible, it has a name, that provokes conversations and wider awareness as well. But yeah, that's a really interesting, thought-provoking point. Thank you for that one.
Mega?
Do we have time? Are we okay? Yeah.
I think, one last question. Yeah, if
Okay.
anyone has to leave.
Okay, it's just to well, it's just to say, Sam, just thinking about where you were talking about the I guess the offering, and now look at maybe where there's kind of gaps, like you say, where students fall through. Two of the things that I've kind of noticed, and it's just thinking about like where LSE not comes up with, but how it chooses its WP criteria each year in those markers, because we've had instances of students who are care experienced, but, and then this has happened a number of times now, but have gone to a private school for their on a bursary for their final year of school, so then aren't even WP flagged because they've gone to a private school. And it's only really, again, incidentally through working with admissions that we've managed to identify those students and put them back on our own WP register. So I guess that's kind of one of the places where we've seen a slight pitfall there. And I guess another link that we're seeing is an increasing number of our WP students are also commuters from in and around London and the local area. So we now have about probably like 40 commuters per year group, or so 30 or 40. And it's a network, again, that I think is not really represented particularly well across LSE. We do a few things here, but like within law, but again, is that kind of on the cards for maybe, I know like the off-campus support scheme was stopped this year, having been run in previous years. So is that something that's also being considered in terms of wider support, thinking about like commuting students, for example?
And I think that's the big group that LSE hasn't really got a handle on. So I've worked with planning colleagues recently, and we've not really known who our commuting students are. So defining a commuter student is very difficult. The data is very odd and all over the place. But we did find out that commuter students are more likely to be from disadvantaged backgrounds, more likely to get a contextual offer, more likely to be from a non-white ethnicity, more likely to be female. So there's these different factors that affect their experience. Each is kind of, all of these things are affecting them in an intersectional way and affecting their experience at LSE. We expect to pick up quite a few of those students through this new work with contextual offer holders. Appreciate that's not everyone. There are kind of other things afoot, particularly working with the Students' Union and through the Educate for Global Impact, kind of the UGI work. No one has worked out how to work with these students yet, I think, because their experiences are so individual. So whether they are commuting out of choice or necessity, whether that means they've got external care and commitments, things they have to do outside of 9 to 5, how often they're on campus, etc., etc. There are some students who are commuting a very long way as well. And I've heard from students, it's kind of, I'll come onto campus when I have to, and I want nothing else to do with LSE kind of dynamics, which is very different. So I think my messages will hopefully pick up a few. There is more to be done, more to understand about these students, and then to work out what these students kind of want and need. So it's a kind of slightly in progress thing. What I would encourage is where departments have a group of students who know and potentially have those closer relationships with, see what can be done and work with others on that. WP, we might be up for something, other groups around might be up for trying something. If we can work with a group of students and trial something on a small scale, see if it works, I think that's great.